Hey guys, welcome back to Jess and Reid's Romance. I'm Jessin, and today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in August. Can you believe that it's already September? I can't. I'm going to have to curate my list for September and make it a little bit more reasonable, because if you watched my August TBR video, then you know that I listed a bunch of books and I only got to about like half. I don't know. I didn't count. I didn't want to see which ones I didn't read or how many I didn't read. But I'm going to be more conservative for my September TBR, that's for sure. So for the wrap up, I thought that I would work my way backwards, starting with the book that I just read, and work my way back to what I started with in August, because the books that I just read are pretty fresh in my mind and they're phenomenal. So if you just watched my hurricane reading vlog, then you know that I just finished Emerald Blaze, which I absolutely love this book. I gave it 5 stars. This is the fifth book in the Hidden Legacy series by Ilona Andrews. And it's also the second book that features this particular hero and heroine, Catalina and Alessandro. The first book was Catalina's older sister, Nevada and Mad Rogan, which if you're familiar with our podcast, then you know that Mad Rogan is on my top book boyfriend of all times list, and we update that every year. I'll also update that at the end of this year. I'm gonna have a really hard time this year, guys, because I've read some awesome books with some awesome heroes, awesome heroines. Alessandro wants to be on this list. He's trying. He really is. So I gave this book 5 stars. It was amazing. The pacing is always on point with these books. Action-packed, character development. The overarching plot is extremely interesting. I just can't find any fault with this series. It's one of my favorite series of all time, not just in the urban fantasy and paranormal sector of the books that I read, but just of all time. I just love this series. I love Ilona Andrews, and yeah. I also read Ransom by Julie Garwood during the hurricane, and I gave this one 4 stars. I really loved it. Julie Garwood's pretty good at creating these heroes who are like broody and these light and effervescent heroines. And even though they're a little naive about the way the world works and matters of the heart, they are still pretty badass, which I commend her for. It's a tough act to balance. So that one's really good. It's still my second favorite, right after The Secret. The Secret's my top favorite by Julie Garwood, but I've yet to read all of her backlist. I've only read 4, but I have tons of Julie Garwood now because I got some in a few hauls from eBay, which I gotta stay off eBay. The next book I read was Not My Romeo by Madden-Mills. This one was a case of like mistaken identity on a blind date, and our heroine sits down accidentally at this table, and he's actually a professional NFL player. He kind of has this bad rap with the media. The media is like blowing up things out of proportion. And she's this librarian that makes sexy lingerie. And I just really like their banter. I like the little town that they were in. She lived in a town not far from Nashville, and he played for the Nashville football team in Nashville. Don't ask me what that is in real life, because like don't know. Anyway, I really enjoyed that one. I gave that one 4 stars. Then next on my list is Don't Hex and Drive by Juliette Cross. Juliette Cross is not only my co-host for the podcast, she's also my aunt, so I'm really biased when it comes to this book. I've read it multiple times throughout the course of development, and of course I gave it 5 stars. I love these characters. The hero is Devraj, and he is a vampire. He's outgoing and like just out there. He dabbled in some Bollywood. He was a movie star in India, and our heroine, Isadora, is his complete opposite. She's very shy. She's a little socially awkward. She prefers to garden in her greenhouse, and she's a conduit witch, and she's just very shy, doesn't like the spotlight. And so this is an opposite to attract, and I really love that trope, and it works so well. I loved it. 5 stars. Love it. It's coming out on September 8th, so make sure that you pre-order. The next one on my list was Truce by Claire Contreras. This is the first Claire Contreras book that I read. It's her first book in her Secret Society series. I am going to read the second book. I gave this one a 3 stars because the heroine came off a little TSTL. She was trying to investigate, not on purpose. I thought that it was more purposeful by the sound of the blurb, that she was purposefully trying to infiltrate the secret society to determine what happened to her brother, and also a missing girl in the town that she went to high school with. And I thought that she was doing it on purpose, but she actually kind of stumbled upon these secret societies by accident. She was trying to find the truth. She found these clues, and then she was like, man, that sounds weird. Oh well, I won't worry about it. And so every time that happened, I was like, I don't understand. Aren't you supposed to be gathering clues, putting things together, and you're just kind of like waving it away, hand waving it away? I like the hero in this book, but the heroine just really didn't vibe with me. So yeah, 3 stars. Then the next book on my list is Here to Stay by Adriana Herrera. I was lucky enough to receive an ARC of this book, and I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed the hero and heroine. It was sort of an enemies to lovers, sort of a slow burn, which the pacing didn't work well with the way that she chose to initiate their relationship, enemies to lovers, and then it took them so long to get on the same page. But I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoy the way that Adriana Herrera brings social issues to her book. They meld really well. Obviously, she takes great care to introduce these sensitive topics to her book. And in this particular book, the heroine is running a charity foundation that supports children separated from their parents who are immigrants. So I always expect these little details like this to accompany a Adriana Herrera book. I really like this book, 4 stars. The next book on my list is A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore. I received an ARC of this, and I believe it's coming out September 1st. Initially, during my ARC review video, I rated this book 3.5 stars. I'm downgrading this to a 2 stars. I got to think about it more after I initially did the quick review on my Instagram page. I always do quick reviews on Tuesday of every single book that I read, just like a short little what I thought of the book and my rating. But I was thinking about it more. There were some things that were bothering me, and I couldn't stop getting those things out of my mind. I had some issues with the heroine. I had some issues with the enemies to lovers trope. The way that Evie Dunmore chose to establish it, I didn't think it was a great reason for them to hate each other. There was a flashback in their childhood. Lady Lucy, who is the heroine, thought that Tristan was spying on her and being a little perverted, but he wasn't. And the reason why it didn't work is because I was aware as the reader of what Tristan really was doing, and it was heartbreaking. So I felt more on Tristan's side, even though I sympathized with Lucy and why she felt like kind of a little like things were out of her control. It didn't justify the antipathy that carried on into their adulthood. I didn't love the way that Lucy dismissed him. He's a very sensitive soul. His father basically beat him for being, less than a man, and he was obsessed with like poetry. He just wasn't interested in like masculine pursuits like his father wanted him to be. And he was the spare, so his father really didn't pay attention to him. Now, when they're adults, it's sort of hinted at that Tristan is bisexual. And it's never really confirmed. And this really bothered me. I would have rather the author lean in to his sexuality, and she just kind of like dangled it out there and then did nothing with his character. And that way she chose to focus a lot on Lucy and her suffragette movement, which was great. But like, I wanted to know more about Tristan, and I didn't feel like we got that. Now, another point, which was a huge deciding factor in me reducing my rating of this book, is that there's a part of the plot, and I'm going to insert a spoiler warning right here at the bottom of the video. So if you don't want to know what happens at the end of the book, just mute this and wait until this little spoiler mark is gone, and then I'll move on from this book. But at the end of the book, Lucy's cousin decides to frame Tristan and act like Tristan compromised her. And she had some help with this man who was in love with Tristan. I can't remember his name. He was a member of the peerage, and he was obsessed with Tristan, and he really wanted a relationship with Tristan, and Tristan wasn't interested in it. And the reason why he was in love with Tristan, was because Tristan was with another woman in front of this man. And so this man wanted Tristan. There was multiple instances in the book where this man would get really drunk and like beg for Tristan's attention and make a spectacle of himself. At one point he was like clinging to Tristan's leg while Tristan was like trying to get away, moving down the street. I don't like the evil gay character shtick. This is the thing, having like a gay character be obsessed with like a heterosexual man or a bisexual man, it doesn't matter, but the point is that this man didn't have an interest in him, and so he had to get back at him. I don't like this trope. It happens a lot in Outlander. Juliette and I both have a problem with that, with Jamie being the object of obsession for so many gay men, and I'm just like, are you saying gay men are all like this? It's wrong. Don't do this. Like, authors, don't do this in your books. This is so wrong. Like, why would you do this? And he gave Lucy some information to act like she saw Tristan unclothed because he had a tattoo that was hidden, in which she should have only seen if they were intimate together. Of course, she got some details wrong, and not to mention, which I didn't catch this because I am not familiar with the deeper aspects of Hinduism, but a very popular reviewer, Aria with Smart Bitches Trashy Books, she pointed out that the fact that this hero had this particular type of tattoo, even though it wasn't specifically a tattoo of the god Shiva, it was too closely related to Shiva. It was a naked woman with 4 arms, and it was supposed to be like a nod to Shiva, and Arya said that that was not okay. You have to listen to reviewers whenever they say that. This is her culture, this is her religion, she knows best. And so I'm just wondering why the publisher did not have sensitivity readers from India read this book, because I'm sure that they would have pointed this out. Also, he was a hero that had some involvement in a foreign war, so that's not great as well. Okay, I'm done with this book. We have to move on. The next few books I read for the historical romance readathon, which was awesome because I discovered an amazing new author named Stacy Reid. I read My Darling Duke by Stacy Reid, and this was a Beauty and the Beast trope with a wheelchair-bound hero who was like a recluse, and the heroine Kitty Danvers, her family was in dire straits, so she decides to pretend like she's engaged to this duke in order to elevate her family status, thinking that the duke would never hear of this, but he does, and he's very intrigued, and so he decides to kind of play along, and through the course they fall in love. It was beautiful. I really enjoyed this. I'm definitely reading more of Stacy Reid's books. 5 stars for this book. Then I read Lady Sophia's Lover by Lisa Kleypas, and this is the first book in her Bow Street Runners series. I had not read some of her backlist before, but you know, I'm getting there. So I really love Sir Ross and Lady Sophia. She was seeking vengeance for a wrong that was done to her brother who died, and she holds Sir Ross accountable. So she gets a job in Bow Street hoping to basically ruin his life, but then she starts falling in love with him. So I really enjoyed that internal struggle. Her effect on Sir Ross, it just was beautiful. I rated this book 5 stars. And then after this one, this is actually not a part of the historical romance readathon, but I did read the next book in the series, the 3rd book in the Bow Street Runner series. It's called Worth Any Price, and the character is Nick Gentry, which we see in Lady Sophia's Lover. I really liked it because he was like a character that needed to sort of be redeemed. He had a bad reputation in Lady Sophia's Lover, and now he's working for Bow Street. He's tasked with finding this missing woman who's the fiance of a peer, and he wants her back. She's been missing for 2 years, so he tracks her down. He ends up by falling for her himself, and of course that creates trouble because her ex-fiance, who her parents were forcing her to marry, does not want to let them get away with this. So I really enjoyed this book, but I gave it 4 stars because it just was not as good. Enjoyable read, but it's just like whenever you compare it to all of my 5-star reads by Lisa Kleypas, it was like, that was good, but like others were like, I enjoyed a lot more. Then I read Castles by Julie Garwood. This book I gave 4 stars. It's probably my least favorite Julie Garwood out of all the ones that I have read, and it's because I didn't really enjoy the hero. The hero was a little too rough around the edges for me. I just didn't love the way that he talked to the Princess Alessandra. I think that was her name. And she's really cool. She's crafty. I like the heroines that Julie Garwood creates. They always get their own way. Sometimes they have to be a little shady about it. Like Princess Alessandra had to pretend that she had this uncle who would give her financial advice in order for her to basically invest in certain things because she knew that the person that was handling her money and estate would not take kindly to a woman kind of dictating those things. And so she pretended like she had an uncle. So she got her own way. She like worked within her the bounds that society set for her, and she still got what she wanted. And that's what Julie Garwood's heroines tend to do, which is why I love them so much. Then the next one I read was The Conqueror by Brenda Joyce. I didn't enjoy this book at all. I think I gave it a 3 stars. No, I gave it a 2 stars, didn't I? Let me check. Yeah, I gave this book a 2 stars. First of all, this romance has a lot of non-consensual scenes. Warning, if you are triggered by any of this, just skip like about a minute because I'm not going to talk about this book for long. But especially in the first book, the hero tries to rape the heroine. He does not at first, and then they kind of start to fall in love eventually, even though he's an asshole. She's annoying too, but obviously none of this is her fault. And the thing that really got me was they're supposed to be falling in love, but the first time that they have sex, he forces her. He rapes her. Like straight up, no contest. And I'm just like, what is this? It is the risk I run as a reader to go back to these books that were written in like the 80s and still into the 90s. But I'd been so lucky with like Julie Garwood that I wasn't expecting it to be so blatant and terrible, so I didn't like that. The next book on my list was Engagement and Espionage by Penny Reid. This is the first book in her new series. The new series name is Solving for Pie, and it's kind of a reference to Kleypas's sausage and Jennifer baking a pie, and they said that they were going to make one together. I'm still hoping that they eventually open, maybe in the series, a pie and dulcimer shop, which Kleypas mentioned at the end of Beard Science, which is Kleypas and Jennifer's original love story. There's about a 4 or 5 year gap in Penny Reid's Winston Brothers series. This series is covering those years. There's some things that happen. I'm not going to spoil it if you've not read Dr. Strangebeard or Beard Necessities. I'm not going to spoil it, but these books take place during that time period, and it's Kleypas and Jennifer kind of navigating their relationship, because just because they're in a relationship does not mean they don't go through hardship. So I did enjoy that. I did give this book a 4-star though, because Beard Science was a slow burn book. I thought it was appropriate for their relationship though. Engagement and Espionage, it just like was really lacking that intimacy between Kleypas and Jennifer that I really wanted. We got a few sex scenes. They were hot. Holy shit, Kleypas the dirty talker, just yes. But they got interrupted a lot, and that's one of my least favorite tropes, is like continual interruptions as like a shtick. I didn't like it. It's supposed to be like funny, like, oh, they're trying to be together, but people keep interrupting them, but I'm like, no, it's annoying. Just annoying. So anyway, 4 stars for Engagement and Espionage. I really liked it. Cannot wait for, is it Marriage and Murder? I believe is the next one. So I think I know who's going to be murdered, but I'm not going to spoil it. Then the next book I have on my list was Midnight Sun by Stephenie Meyer. This was the long anticipated version of Twilight from Edward's point of view. I enjoyed Midnight Sun way more than Twilight. I don't know if it was new, but I don't think so. I think it's because Edward just had the much more compelling point of view. There's just so much about the vampire world that we were missing because we were limited to Bella's point of view, and since we got Edward's point of view, we got to see the Cullens hanging out. I got to know Jasper a lot more, which holy shit, I love Jasper. I want more of him. I'd read a book from his point of view. He's just a very interesting character. I wish we would have seen more of him now that I read Midnight Sun. But anyway, I love it. 5 stars. Then the next book on my list was The Bride by Julie Garwood. I really love this book. 4-star just because I'm measuring it against The Secret. Always. I'm always measuring these Julie Garwood books against The Secret because I loved it so much. Bride has this young woman who's the youngest sister, and her father pretty much uses her kind of like as like a servant-ish, but like it's so weird. She like loves her father, who's technically her stepfather, raised her from whenever she was a baby. She like loves him so much, and he like dotes on her, but she thinks she needs to be the protector of like her sisters. Her sisters are very whiny and like always looking for her to make things better. So she's like the most mature out of all 4 of her sisters, 3 of her sisters. But her father is being forced by the king to have 2 of his daughters marry these Scottish lords to appease the Scottish king. Whenever our hero, Alec Kincaid, he sees Jamie, and he's like, oh no, this is the one I definitely want. She's the most spirited, she can handle herself. And I just really enjoyed it because he had the task of like showing her like, no, you should not be doing all these things to take care of your family. Like, they should have been taking care of you. And I just really enjoyed how she fit into the Highlands, the Highland way of life, and she changed some things. And it was just, there was a bit of a mystery to it too. I knew who was like the bad guy, but I still found it enjoyable. Then the next book I read was The Earl Takes All by Lorraine Heath. It is the second book in the Hellions of Havisham series. I love this book. It had a bit of forbidden romance element, kind of taboo. The hero is a twin, and he and his twin were off on like an adventure, and one of the twins dies. The twin that died was actually the Earl. The Earl of Grayling insisted that his brother Edward kind of take his place, so as not to upset his wife, who was currently pregnant. And he didn't want his twin Edward to tell his wife until after she had the baby, because they did have trouble getting pregnant and she'd had a miscarriage before. So he goes along with it, but the problem is Edward, the twin who's not married to the heroine, and her name is Julie, I think, or Julia, he's always been in love with her. So it becomes very hard on him because he's trying to act like her husband, trying to make sure that he is doing what his brother would be doing, even though that they were very different. He doesn't want to upset Julia by like pushing her away because she expects to be intimate with her husband, but he's like, I can't do this to her. It was just amazing. I love how it all ended up. I love how the secret came out. I love the reactions. I just loved it. Love the book. I gave that one 4 stars, probably 4.5 stars. I wish that Goodreads had half stars. And I keep forgetting to use Storygraph instead of Goodreads, but I need to remember because they have quarter stars, like Goodreads would never. And then one of my favorite books that I've read this year, pretty sure that it's going to go on a favorite list. Like, it's not going to be. Yeah, it's going to go. One Hot Italian Summer by Karina Halle. This book was just what I needed. The heroine was part of a writing duo. Her writing partner, passed away, and she was also kind of her only friend. So Grace decides that in order to continue writing, she's going to switch genres. Instead of writing mysteries, she's going to delve into women's fiction. She just recently got a new agent. The agent's checking up on her for a deadline. She's nowhere even near starting this book because she sold this book as a proposal. Like, she didn't have anything but a proposal, which is bad. So her agent suggests, look, I have a house in the Tuscany region of Italy. You should get out of Edinburgh, which is gloomy and rainy right now, and go, and maybe that'll inspire you to write. She goes there. Her agent kind of fibbed. It wasn't really her house. It's her ex-husband's house. So her ex-husband and her son were supposed to be gone for the month that she told Grace to go. Their plans got canceled, so they go back to the house, and she ends up by falling in love with Claudio Romano. And let me just tell you, I love Claudio so much, and I also love his son Vani. This is an example of an author who like included a child character who actually had like a purpose in the novel. Like, I like whenever children are incorporated to like mean something and not just like, oh, I have a kid, and like we'll never talk about them ever and let my characters fall in love and then big happy family at the end. Karina Halle did an amazing job. I loved it. It was really hot, and I also just loved imagining the setting of the Tuscany region of Italy. I've been to Italy once, and I was just like, oh, if we could only travel again one day. And then the last book I read, I'm pretty sure that this was the first book that I read in August, was Rustic Hearts by Amber Kelly. This popped up on kind of suggested for you in KU Reads. I really love the cover of it. I'm a sucker for a good cover. Like, if I'm like, this cover is beautiful, I want to read it. So I decided to read it. The heroine had pretty much grown up in New York. She lived in Colorado until she was 12, and her mother in the middle of the night whisked her away to New York. She had a great relationship with her father when she was younger, but he never came for her in New York. She always expected him to. So now she dislikes him a lot for never coming for her, for not trying to be a part of her life. even though she was thousands of miles away. But her grandmother dies. She gets a call from one of her aunts. She decides to go to Colorado, and she ends up by falling for her father's new wife's ward. Like, I think it's her nephew. But anyway, it was both, I felt like it was supposed to be like a forbidden romance, but I just wished there was more actual chemistry between the main characters. I was much more interested in the relationship between the heroine, her name escapes me because it's been a month, and her father. I was more interested in that. It was like the romance was like a side plot that didn't really matter. I think I gave this one a 3 stars. Let me go check real quick. Yeah, I gave this one a 3 stars. Not bad writing, just the romance. When the romance takes a back seat, it's just not my favorite. Alright guys, those are all the books that I read in August. There's a ton on my list, on my TBR list that I did not get to. I will be doing a September TBR list. It'll be much shorter than the video I made on my August TBR. I need to stick to it. But you know I'm a mood reader. If you have not heard me say it before, I'm a mood reader. It's hard for me to like, it's almost like I don't like being told what to read, even though I'm the one telling myself, you need to read these books. But there are a few books that I know I'm going to read, I just didn't get to. And I know that I'm going to slow down with reading in the fall months, like I normally do. I start off really strong in the beginning of the year, reading like 6-7 books a week. And then I start tapering off. I definitely want to read a couple books that were on my August TBR list. I'll move them over to September, and then there are a few new releases that I'm really interested in. So I'll let you guys know that video will be coming sometime this week. We'll see when I can film. That's all that I have for you guys today. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe right now. You can ring that bell. And if you like this video and want more like it, just click the like button. Thank you so much for watching, and remember that life's better with a little HEA. Bye guys.